Hi, this is On Imagination with the Healing Garden, and welcome to Shifting Perspectives. All right, hide and survive. This is the last stage of getting it all down. So, when I broke down all the fears that we had, basically it came down to two categories: either hide or survive. The hiding goes into this category. That's fear of being seen, fear of being heard, fear of speaking, fear of talking, fear of being yourself, fear of being honest. Don't talk about the masks because we're hiding. And that all stems to the it's not safe to not hide, bottom line. So we are all hiding from ourselves. That's what we're hiding from. We are hiding from ourselves. That is the first fear. Oh, is that an ugly one? We are hiding from our own truth. So we're all wearing masks. And there's one rule: we do not talk about the masks. So it's not safe to be seen. It's not safe to be heard. It's not safe to talk. It's not safe to speak. And once you start speaking and talking, once you start asking why, once you start asking the uncomfortable questions that force people to look at the fact that they are not wearing clothes, it's that one child standing out going, hey, the emperor is naked. We're hiding from ourselves. We've told ourselves a bunch of lies. We're not being honest. We're all wearing masks. Part of this disguise falls into the category of these are the rules. Rule number one, don't grow. Because if you grow, I will have someone to compare my lack of growth to. Don't change. Because if you change, I will start to notice how we're different. And then I'll have to look at myself. Don't be different. That's a solid rule. We all have to be the same. Because the moment we're not the same, I have to confront myself. And I'm so busy hiding from myself, and we're all hiding. We are all hiding from ourselves. So we have this concept of we're afraid to grow, we're afraid to change, we're afraid of being different. And this is it right here. Because now you've got conformists who are terrified of looking at their own truth. Because when they look at their truth, they have to be honest about some things. Rule number one, they have wasted their life. Rule number two, they're not happy. Rule number three, they have work to do. Rule number four, they're going to have to give up a lot of the things that they thought they wanted. Rule number five, they're going to change and they're going to end up losing their belonging. These are really fucking big topics. So they have all of these rules in place so they don't have to deal with what it is they're avoiding because they don't want to face what their problem is. So they're afraid of themselves. They wear masks. They're afraid of the truth. And they've made everybody around them help them with their delusion so they can lie to themselves. My first rule has always been, I don't help people lie to themselves. I will not enable that shit. It's why I do therapy the way I do it. It's why I do psychology the way I do it. It's why I do everything the way I do it. I do not help people with delusion. If you want to delude yourself, I am not the person to be around. I have no friends for this reason. This is it. Because I meet somebody and masks and lies don't work on me. I see somebody with a mask and a lie and I'm like, yeah, we're going to talk about that. I can't not, because I will not allow people to bullshit around me because bullshit hurts me. So I have to choose between, you have to be honest if you're going to be in my close circle. And if you cannot be honest with yourself, we can't be friends. There's not a lot of people who are okay with being honest with themselves. And once I start to show them who they really are, they walk away, which is fine. But the people who are close to me, oh, they are fucking honest with themselves. I command it. Authenticity. That's really what we're talking about here. This is hiding. Now, the flip side of all of this is surviving. One of my favorite episodes of Walking Dead is called JSS, just survive somehow. And every time I talk about survival, I just see her eating that turtle, writing just survive somehow, JSS, in the dirt, like JSS, just survive somehow. And that is this. Our just survive somehow revolves around rejection and abandonment. It comes down to our belonging, our kinsmen and our clan. I am Celtic. So kinsmen and clan are really fucking big to me. People pleasing. Now, you have two types of people here. You either internalize fear or you project fear. There. Just sit with that for a minute. Do you project fear or do you internalize fear? Sit with it. Most of you probably internalize it because the people who project it are narcissists and they're not here. So, people who project fear have a fear of not controlling. The people who fear not being in control are narcissists because they project fear by seeking out control of their environment or of other people. We all have narcissism inside of us. This is a spectrum. We all have percentages of this inside of us. We all do this. Narcissists are the people who do the majority of projecting fear. But we all have projection and internalization of fear inside of us. We all have empath and narcissist inside of us. The sooner we accept that, the sooner we will realize that around the right combination of people, you become the narcissist. It's a really ugly truth. As I said, I don't allow people to hide from themselves. So I say a lot of shit that people don't want to hear because I don't enable hiding. So we're all narcissists. It's not a them versus us. You get around the right combination of people. It's basically a who has the most domination, who is the most submissive. The submissives take on the role of the empath. The most dominant take on the role of the narcissist. And if you are authentic, then it's their job to not internalize. Boundaries. If you project, well, you just project it onto people who internalize. That's the problem. And we all project at some point or another. We all internalize at some point or another. Even the narcissist internalizes. The narcissist has empath inside of them. This is not a cut and dry black and white. That's trauma talking. This is a spectrum. We all are narcissists. Own it. And we all are empaths. The question is, are you keeping your narcissist off of other people? That's the question. It's easy to play the victim. I'm an empath. I'm an empath. All these narcissists say, yeah, you're a narcissist too. We all are. It doesn't work that way. We all have narcissistic tendencies. We all, because we're human, we all take turns with projection and internalization. And once you study and understand boundaries and how those work, you'll understand how narcissism and empaths work. This is about projecting and internalizing your fear. The only safe neutral zone, is authenticity with stable boundaries. If you are authentic with boundaries, you're in the sweet spot. And that's it, really. The ideal place to be, the right answer, is authentic with stable, healthy boundaries. If you can get there, that's where we all should be, need to be, are going to, then you're fine. If we all achieve authentic with stable boundaries, we're good. So when you internalize fear, that's when you have a fear of failure, fear of disappointment, fear of perfectionism, fear of mistakes. You are taught to people please. You are taught to serve. This is very much what I call the slave mind, because your mind was literally conditioned by a controller to put yourself in a position where you are constantly submitting. So this is where BDSM really kicks in. And whether or not people want to hear it, we all have BDSM inside of us. Deal with that. So submission is very much the internalization of fear. Internalizing is submission. Projection is domination. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. This is the way it is. So when our survival is right there on the line, you are either projecting your fear, you're internalizing your fear. Here's the other part. This is the great combination. With some fears, you're going to project them. Other fears, you're going to internalize them. It's a cocktail. This is a cocktail, which is why there's a spectrum. And you're going to have some people who exclusively only internalize, and you're going to have some people who only exclusively project. That's where we start to pull out labels like narcissist and empath. And then there's some people who toggle. Everyone toggles between being authentic with stable boundaries and then swinging over to internalization, and then they'll swing over to projection and fears, and they'll just move all over the spectrum. And that is really what we all do. That is what we all do. With a rare low percentage. Grandiose narcissists are all the way over in projecting fear, and they never budge. They are always projecting fear. They might come down a little bit. For the most part, they're over here because and that's real fucking trauma. Same thing with people over here who are 100% internalizing fear and absolutely without any self-value. They are all the way over here. This is just survive somehow. This is it. And what is at stake is your belonging. Now, this is gorgeous. Hiding from yourself breaks down your identity, breaks down your creativity. Surviving breaks down your belonging, breaks down your relativity. Yesterday, I talked about the philosopher's compass. We're going to go back to that. The philosopher's compass has 3 parts to it: who you are, who your relatives are, where you are going. That's your creativity, what you are creating. When you are abused into hiding, your identity is taken away from you and your creativity is taken away from you. You are told that you have to create. Are we all paying attention? Because this is the conclusion. We are told that we have to create according to societal expectations. You can't be an actress. You can't be a freelancer. You can't be a musician. You have to be a banker. You have to be a doctor. You have to be an attorney. Boom. You can't be an atheist. You can't be a nonconformist. They are destroying our creativity. They are destroying our identity. We have to hide. So your options are banker, lawyer, doctor, 9-to-5 job, housewife. Your choices are heterosexuality, male or female, and you don't get to choose those. Your gender is going to choose those for you. Your gender just became a prison. Boom. Welcome to conformity, because we're all hiding. We have to hide who you are because I have to hide who I am. And it's not fair. If I see you acting unique, then I'm going to ask why I can't act unique. And I don't want to be reminded that I can't be unique. So I'm going to make you hide so you don't remind me what I'm hiding from myself. So we have to destroy your identity and your creativity. Suddenly your spouse is chosen for you. Your gender is chosen for you. Your life is chosen for you. Your career is chosen for you. I hope you're happy. You make no choices. And we're going to do the just survive somehow. Now we're going to project belonging. If you cannot conform, you need to go find another place to live. This is my house. This is my rules. Now, are you going to internalize or project the fear? Did mommy and daddy internalize or project the fear? Did you have a mother who internalized the fear so she was over enabling you to protect you from an over projected father? Did your father over project so he projected his fears onto you by making himself feel more in control by controlling you? And as a result, your mother tried to defend you by over enabling you? Well, they both are toxic. There wasn't any right answer here. There are no winners. So as a result, you walked away with either the lesson of, oh, this is what I need to do. I learned from my mother. Therefore, I internalize the fear because you internalize the fear. Boom. This is why you're a mama's girl or a daddy's girl. This is why you're a mama's boy or a daddy's boy, is because you match whatever parent you are. Therefore, if your parent is a projector and you are a projector, that's your favorite parent. If your parent is an internalizer and you are an internalizer, that's your favorite parent. I am a mama's girl. My mother internalized, therefore I internalized. I matched up to that. My father projected. I don't get that. My brother internalized. See how this works? Oh, this is amazing. This is really it right here. This is really it. So if you're surviving, now the third part of all of that is your relativity. Now your relatives, your relativity, the third part of that philosopher's compass, now comes down to your relationship with your family. And that comes down to just survive somehow. How do they project their fears? How do they handle fear? This is all about rejection and abandonment. Do they project their fear or do they internalize it? Which one do you do? This is how our philosopher's compass gets compromised. This is it right here. Two basic fears: hide and survive. That's it. That's really what we're dealing with. We are hiding from ourselves and we are balancing this massive juggle of projection and internalization. To fix this, you need to understand it. To fix it, you need to remember who you are. To fix this, you're going to have to get a different relative and archetype. The archetype is strictly a philosophical term. It has nothing to do with psychology, and that's the problem. An archetype. Oh, do we want to borrow from Socrates on this one? You know what? I'm going to start a new video because getting into the archetype, no, we're going to talk about the archetype now. According to Socrates, who is really Plato, because we don't know if Socrates existed. Socrates was a figment of Plato's imagination, supposedly. Plato wrote about Socrates. Socrates did not write a single thing. So we don't know if Socrates actually existed because he didn't actually write anything. Everything we know about Socrates came from Plato. So there's been debate on whether or not Socrates was just Plato in disguise. It's funny because there's Platonic and Platonic theory, which is Plato, and then there's Socratic method, which is Socrates, which is also Plato. So we don't know if Plato was talking about Socrates or if he was actually using an abstract concept to basically get another point across. We don't know. So Socrates or Plato talked about the archetype. The archetype is the very first lesson of philosophy. The archetype is stable, unchanging, ideal, perfect. When it fits all of these categories, it becomes the archetype. There can be only one. And the reason why there can be only one is because if you have many, well, then that means that the others, all of the many, are, and this is the argument, flawed. That's the conclusion. Why would you have many gods? We're talking about God. The archetype is God. In most cases, it is Muhammad or Christ. It's this idea of perfect, even though it denies perfection. The archetype must be perfect. This is Socrates' argument. Now, Christ had anger issues? Oh, yes, he did. I distinctly remember him throwing a tantrum in a temple at one point. Yeah, he had anger issues. And I distinctly remember reading the line, "My God is a jealous God." And last I knew, jealousy was a bad thing. Therefore, Christ and God are not perfect. Boom. They're not the archetype. The only argument that I can come around with this is this. The definition of perfect is the problem. Now, Socrates defines perfect as stable, unchanging, ideal, without flaw. And it's the without flaw that I'm hung up on. When I am hung up on something, it's because it's illogical. Without flaw. Without flaw. Define flaw. Let's define flaw. This is formal argument and debate. Flaw is defined as less than ideal. Who is defining these ideals? Now, what we are really talking about is unique. Oh, yeah, I'm pulling it apart now. Unique. Unique is defined as flawed. Now, if you look at all the Greek gods, oh my God, there is so much human behavior inside of that. See, there's this concept of God and man, human, that has been back and forth from the beginning of time, the relationship between God and man. Now, second perspectives, second stage of growth, takes God and places that as the relative archetype. So that when you define your identity, it is in comparison to God. And with that, you have creativity, your purpose. We're back to the philosopher's compass. And the creativity goes back to the id. Now, when we examine what God is, they have two requirements: mortality, never ending. We're back to that mortality and mortel, the unchanging and the stable. And my logic says to me that that in itself is illogical because that denies evolution, which means this archetype does not grow, does not improve. The argument is it doesn't improve because it's already perfect. How can you improve upon perfect? Good God, I heard that argument since I was like 4 years old. How do you improve upon perfect? You don't, because it's perfect. It's ideal. What if this is just an abstract concept and not a corporeal thought? What if this is abstract? What if God is abstract? And we forgot that it's abstract. And we took this abstract concept, the ideal, and when we made the abstract concept, the ideal, corporeal, concrete, we lost perspective. The idea is this. When you look at the 12 stages of growth, I came up with the philosopher's compass yesterday. I have not yet sat down and applied the 12 stages of growth to the compass, and I'm going, whoa, this is awesome. Holy shit. So the compass, the id, the relative, the creativity, is actually the 12 stages of growth with these three things shifting definition through each stage. Now, I half knew that, and I just, this is extraordinary. So, holy shit, I got to get my thoughts together. Give me a second. It's the authority. Oh, authority is God. Authority is the archetype. The archetype is authority. There we go. The archetype is authority. That's awesome. The archetype is authority. Ethics is creativity. Oh, there it is. Give me a minute. I'm going back to the compass. Creativity is ethics. Oh my God, I love philosophy. And the identity is, of course, still love itself. Identity is love. The archetype is authority. There's that power, control, authority. And creativity is ethics. Why does that not feel right? Because it's not right. I got to figure out why it doesn't feel right. Creativity is ethics. What am I missing? Self-purpose, intuition. Let's put intuition in here because intuition is definitely the creativity. Maybe, I don't know yet. Creativity is, I have not yet pulled apart creativity, and it shows. I pulled apart the identity and I pulled apart the archetype. I have not yet pulled apart creativity. I have not dissected that. Oh my God, this is wonderful. Last time I pulled apart the archetype, I was 15. So I'm like, wow, that was 30 years ago that I did my research on the archetype. That's where all this started, was I dissected the archetype. And then I spent 30 years researching the identity. And I'm done with the identity. Now I've got to do the creativity. Oh, this is interesting. The philosopher's compass. All right. So when you look at stage 1, that's the caregiver stage. That is when the authority, the archetype, is passed to the caregiver. Your identity is defined by what the caregiver tells you your definition is. And self-comfort is the core ethic. Self-comfort is the core ethic. Now, the second stage. The second stage is resources. That is the archetype, the authority is passed from the caregiver and it shifts over to the head of the household or the god or the community leader or the tribal leader or the gang leader. It's the leader. So that's where you get the leader-follower concept and who's leading your life. If this is where a lot of religious people are. This is where all religious people fall. If you are huge into witchcraft, level 2. If you are huge into covenants, level 2. If you are huge into religion, level 2. This is it. Where you have no identity because who you are is determined by the archetype. And the archetype in this case has the authority. And the authority in most cases is the head of the household. This is where the patriarchy starts. Right here. This is the core of patriarchy. It's the concept that God, man, woman, child. Like, yeah, animal, dog. Yeah, it's all down here. And that is it right there. It's because of this hierarchy. The hierarchy 100% belongs to the second stage perspective. And that is what determines our entire societal law based off of that second perspective of growth. You're supposed to evolve past that, but we didn't. Because they don't value, they're in charge and they don't value education. So we stopped growing. And with our beautiful fear system here of we're hiding and it's not safe to grow, we all have stunted growth. So the archetype moves to the leader. The authority moves to the leader. With the third one, and you're supposed to learn resourcefulness at this point. You're supposed to define what you have for your own resources inside of you. The third stage is when you're supposed to take your self-comfort and take your resourcefulness and then say, I'm the leader. And you decide to basically try your hand at self-government. But it doesn't go right. It never goes right. And that's okay because you have to learn your limitations. So the third ethic is self-limitations, acceptance of the self, acceptance of humanity. That's really what you are contending with in the third stage. You are trying to accept your humanity. Your shortcomings, your flaws, your lacks, the imperfect. That's all third perspective. And it results with you finally saying, it resolves itself. You internalize this lesson when you can finally say the words, I need help. This is where narcissism comes from. This is where empaths come from. This right here is where a lot of bullshit is a problem because people aren't learning to accept their limitations. They expect perfection from themselves, or they are projecting perfection onto other people. They are either being held to perfection or they are projecting perfection onto other people because they assume that they are the God. And that's really what it is. They've taken themselves as the archetype. They have defined themselves as the archetype. So the archetype starts with the caregiver, moves to the leader, then moves to the self. You have made yourself the archetype. And the lesson you need to learn at stage 3 is that you are not the archetype. You are not the archetype. But in order to do that, you have to accept your falls, your failures, your shortcomings, which can get you stuck in that stage. It is a very dangerous stage to be in because you have a God complex. That's the archetype. So And this is where narcissism is. This is where this is where you're in this massive imbalance. You must accept your humanity. You must stop expecting perfection from yourself or projecting it onto other people. Once you get to that point, you fall into the archetype shifts to law, rule, and justice. This is where fourth perspective is. When the archetype then stops being on, literally, it goes from woman to man to self. Caregiver, provider, self. That's it. Caregiver, provider, self. The self fails. I have accepted my shortcomings. Let's put it on law instead. So you move the archetype over to law and rules. Now, people who are clinging to their religions are never going to leave second stage. They're going to be obsessed with making sure that the archetype stays God without question. They will forever be stuck in this God provides for me. I am completely unaccountable. I don't have to answer for myself because God is taking care of me. They have no incentive to leave, which is why second stage perspectives, if you're a second stage perspective, I really do not see any hope as far as growth goes. There's no incentive. You're going to have to give up your God. You're going to have to undeitize your God. You're going to have to be accountable and take control of the situation yourself. You're going to have to self-govern. There's no incentive. There's no incentive. The second stage perspective, in my opinion, is the most dangerous because you get stuck there and it's all positive and there's no downfall, except you're not being accountable. You're not self-governing. You have not accepted your own humanity, because in order to even get there, you have to accept the fact or go through the stage of ego. You have to literally feed your ego. And that's the other thing is, oh, ego is dangerous. That's blasphemy. So again, they're stuck in second perspective. If you are in second perspective, most baby boomers are stuck in second perspective. Most baby boomers, a lot of baby boomers are stuck in second perspective. Most traditional housewife mentality are stuck in second perspective. They're just, yeah, there's no incentive. You have to be really, really abused to the point where you finally betray your own God before you finally get out of that. Second perspectives, and then they've got this beautiful little, such a toxic triangle, because then they get into this idea of, oh, well, I'm being punished. God is trying to show me something. This isn't me. This is the devil who's doing it to me. Now you've got this massive passing the buck happening. It's such a symbiotic, parasitic codependency. And that's it. The second perspective is so codependent on the archetype. It's a lost cause. In my opinion, it's just like, close the door on that. There's no saving them. So yeah, if you're at the second perspective, you're not going to get, by the way, there's 12 perspectives and they're stuck at 2. My mother is stuck at 2. And there's no, swearing is bad. Marijuana is bad. Her God is good. She's not responsible for anything bad that happens to her. She's not responsible for anything good that happens to her. It is the epitome of the comfort zone. She's got this fantastic codependency happening with her religion. She's never coming out of it. My father is like, can you talk to your mom? No, she's second perspective. There's no talking to her. She's got everything she needs in her beautiful little comfort zone. So long as you don't break the delusion, she's fine. And if you try and break the delusion, she doesn't think she can do it because she has no ego, because she never made it to the third perspective. You need the third perspective to get your ego. Now, third perspective, that's your ego. That's when you think you are the God. That's where you really need to be for the third perspective, because that's when you try and take on the archetype role yourself. And then you find out that you're less than perfect. Or you find out that it's okay to fail and you do need to ask for help. Moving on to the fourth perspective, that's when you take the archetype and you say, you know what? I'm not the archetype. So who's the archetype? If it's not the provider, if it's not the caregiver, and if it's not me, who is it? Law, justice, they are the archetype. So you pass the archetype over to justice, law, and order, and rules. This is the fourth perspective. This is where our entire system is based off of the fourth perspective. The fourth perspective has a massive flaw. It governs the people for you. You are still not accountable because law makes the decisions for me. I don't have to decide what's right and wrong because the law tells me what's right and wrong. Why do I have to decide my ethics when law decides it for me? And you are still not accountable. because someone is making the decision for you. The minute you decide, maybe, 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 the archetype was not an actual God, it was authority. Maybe the purpose of philosophy was not to discuss the archetype to determine who and what the archetype was. Maybe. I see it now. Good God, I love philosophy. I just had an epiphany, and it shifted everything. The University of Alexandria had an amazing curriculum. If I were to say to you, can you name me any great teachers in the world? Teachers, famous teachers. Christ was a teacher. That's one. Socrates was a teacher. That's two. Plato, Aristotle. Any others? Can anyone else name any great or famous teachers? That's it. That's it. All four of those people graduated from the University of Alexandria. If you look at the teachings of each one of these, Christ, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, every one of them, this is perspective. This is the philosopher's compass. The philosopher's compass is the identity, our relativity, and our relativity, our archetype, and our creativity. It is the relationship between those three things. The lesson starts with the archetype. And that's all Socratic method. That's all Socrates. We dive deep into the archetype, trying to figure out authority. Identity focuses on the self. Identity totally is all about the self, defining the self. The rest of philosophy, that's all we focus on. That's all we focus on is the self, while authority, archetype, is basically being bounced around a little bit in the first year. So when you step back and you look at the perspectives, this 12 stages of growth as outlined in the 1970s, this is not about the archetype. The archetype and the authority are one and the same. This is not about God. God is a metaphor. God is an abstract concept that actually symbolizes authority. The archetype talks on authority, and it passes it around. Who has the authority? Is it your caregiver? At first, yes. And then the authority passes to your provider, the father. And then it passes on to the self. And then it passes over to law, justice, and order. And then it passes back to the self. It passes back to the self a second time, the fifth perspective. But this time, when authority passes to the self, you have you have one additional lesson, technically two. You understand your limitations, you have accepted your humanity, and your self-government. You are now starting to become responsible. So when you are in the third perspective, it's a battle between you learning you and your power. That's what the third perspective is all about, is about power and understanding that your power has limitations to it. But the limitations are actually your ability to self-govern. And this is about power, because the next one up is accountability. It's being responsible for that power. Yeah, you are responsible for that power, and you need to be held accountable for it. So it's first, here's your self-comfort. Here's your ability to manage yourself. And that's what it is, bottom line. From your caregiver, you're supposed to learn self-management. From your provider, stage 2, you are supposed to be learning your resources, what you have. Now, your resources are directly linked to your purpose and your creativity. That's really what you are dealing with when you are dealing with your resources. Your creativity is your resources. So self-comfort, you're supposed to learn management, you're supposed to learn creativity. Bottom line, management, how to manage your system, and how to have your creativity. Because your creativity is going to be your resources. And once you have those two things mastered, then you are given power and authority back. And that's when you realize that perfection is unattainable, that you are not the archetype. You might have power, but you don't have authority. And that's really it. Stage 3 is all about examining power, not authority. Stage 5 is about authority, because you have to have the ability to self-govern and accountability in order to step away and have this authority. So you get your authority with stage 5. Now, this is where it all fucked up. At some point, we started hiding because of fear. So we hid from ourselves and we were trying to survive. That is not a growth mindset. That is a scarcity mindset. As a result, it held us back. When it held us back, we were put in a position where lost my train of thought. This is why I write when I talk, so I don't lose my train of thoughts. Shit. We develop fear, so we stop growing. When we stop growing, we never learn accountability. We never learn responsibility. That's what I was trying to say. So, what ends up happening, because we never learned self-comfort, because we never learned self-management, we never learned how to get control. There it is. That's it. We're seeking control. So as a result, we seek the feeling of control instead of learning how to actually obtain control through authority. This is a pursuit of authority. Boom. There it is. Our pursuit for the archetype is not within a God, it is within ourselves. That's the problem. The compass is not relative. It's authority. It is identity, authority, creativity. That is it. It is identity. It is authority. It is creativity. That is the compass. That is what I was trying to get to. It is a delusion to think that a God is the archetype, because the God is an abstract. There is no God. It's the archetype. It's the authority that we are in pursuit of. But we don't get that till the 5th perspective. But the people who composed all of this were at the 2nd perspective. The University of Alexandria were the masters of perspective psychology. This is actually what they were doing. They were looking for the ultimate truth. Truth is perspective. Specifically, truth is your perspective. The right answer, the right truth, is all of our truths. It is our uniqueness. Oh, we are totally off of psychology now. This is 100% pure philosophy. The ultimate truth, that we've been searching for in philosophy is your perspective and my perspective. It's absolutely perspective. Truth equals your perspective. When we hear the words right and wrong, we are not talking about ethics. We are not talking about good or evil. We are talking about right in comparison to my perspective, wrong in comparison to my perspective. So I have something I say that is right, wrong, and yours, or right, wrong, and mine. Right means that's my perspective. Wrong means that's not my perspective. And yours means that's your perspective. So we say right and wrong when we're actually comparing someone's opinion onto our own perspective without giving them the option that they can have their own perspective. So whenever we say right and wrong, we are denying them their own perspective. So it should be right, wrong, or yours. Those are the three options, but we have denied yours because we have put ourselves in the position of the one, the only, the truth. And so long as we all agree that the one truth is my perspective, then there's conformity. That's the problem. There isn't mine versus wrong. There is mine, not mine, and yours. Now, you also have mine, not mine, and yours as well. That is the ultimate truth. That is it right there. It's not right and wrong. It's right, wrong, and yours. Because right means mine. Wrong means not mine. Yours means another option. Now you've entered into the world of perspective. So that is the truth. Now, the ultimate truth features and focuses around who we are, what we are. We're back to the ego. The ego is dependent on, the ego is our truth, our individual or personal truth. That is ego. Now, our ego is directly related to, I'm going to put here related to, authority, the archetype, the power, not the control, the power. And it is also linked to our uniqueness, which is our identity, which is our creativity. Now, my God, I love this shit. Now, this is the philosopher's compass, the relationship to the identity, our own power, and our creativity that focuses on our center truth of perspective, our perspective, and how it is relative to your perspective. Now, in a healthy individual, you would have your perspective completely isolated in your own bubble, untouched by another person. This is called a purified perspective. When you have your purified perspective, you need to maintain your purified perspective. This is a healthy optimum wealth. This is it right here, having your purified perspective. Abuse happens when somebody else's truth, someone else's perspective comes in and takes it away from you. When they take away your perspective, you lose your ego, you lose your identity. You now are no longer able to obtain your authority. You can't obtain your authority? Well, now you are afraid. Now you, oh my God, this is gorgeous. Now you have to seek out your authority, your archetype, your power elsewhere. So you project it or you internalize it because you are seeking your authority. This is the conclusion. This is it right here. Your authority, your archetype, your power gets internalized via projecting of that fear or that power. Let's say power. I'm sorry, not power, control. Words matter. So they project the control or they internalize the control. But you can't have control because you haven't established authority. Control is a consequence to authority. But you don't get yours until you reach the fifth perspective. But you're not. You're at the second, third, or fourth perspective. You can't get authority until you reach the fifth perspective. But you can't get there until you grow. You can't get there until you overcome your fear. You can't get there until you humble. So we end up with an entire society of adults stuck at the second, third, fourth perspective, none of whom have even remotely begun to learn authority, power, ego, self-comfort, self-management, creativity, your growth, your fear. You have not learned self-responsibility. You have not learned self-accountability. So you need a system to tell you what to do, to govern you, because you can't do it. You need a mother and a father to provide for you because you can't do it. But if you're stuck in the third perspective, now you're stuck in a place where you are constantly in pursuit of your own power. But you have not accepted the limitations of your power. And you will not be able to accept the limitations of your power until you push yourself maxed out completely in that perspective. Once you do that, and once you learn self-government, then you gain access to authority. But because people don't, because they're afraid, because they were taught to fear themselves, they were taught to be afraid of their growth. As a result, they never learn self-government and self-accountability. And as a result, they never gain their authority. It's completely left away from them. They have no access to self-authority. So they fall back to it. They seek out power in a different way. They seek out control via projection or internalization. And they never grow. Now, we are at a point. The other thing is education is not prioritized. Growth is not prioritized by the second, third, and fourth stages. Because education and growth is linked to creativity. Creativity is taken away from us when we are 2 years old, because children should be seen and not heard. So creativity dies in the second stage. The identity dies at the third stage. Authority is not obtained until the fifth stage. That is what's wrong with the world. At 2, our creativity and our world of make-believe is taken away from us, and with it, our education and our desire to grow, taken away. At third stage, 3 years old, our identity is taken away. Conformity has destroyed all of this because of our fear, because we're hiding, because we are afraid to look at ourselves, because we're all busy wearing masks, because we're afraid to be honest with ourselves. As a result, we have to make sure everyone conforms so that we don't have to look at ourselves. And it's a cycle. And that's the connection between my partner and I. XYZ. I see it now. My partner and I are in the exact precise cycle, except smaller, much smaller. I needed to go bigger. You beautiful bitch. You beautiful bitch. I needed to go bigger. Oh, yesterday I figured out the logic loophole that my partner and I were caught in, which is exactly the same societal loophole that we are all caught in. It's identical, which is how he was connected. And she's just been screaming at me, go bigger, the whole time. So now it's all like, oh, he's leading to me. I guess. All right. So breadcrumbs, Easter eggs, have fun with that. So, all right. X, this is what I did with him yesterday, equals. Oh, this is the formula. I get to write the formula. I've been looking for this formula for 30 years. Okay. X equals self-love. Y equals fear. Z equals mask. There it is. Identity. X equals identity. We become afraid of X. Y became afraid of X, so we put on a mask, Z, and that became the cycle. We became afraid of ourselves. There it is. So we use the fear, Y, to put on a mask, Z, which made us more afraid. This is the avoidance cycle of the self. We put on more mask, which increased the fear, spiral. As a result, we stopped growing. We stopped educating. We banned uniqueness. We banned our differences, which made us more afraid of the unknown because the identity has become the unknown. The self is the unknown. There it is. We are afraid of the unknown. This is the catch-22. I love that book. This is it. We are afraid of the unknown and we don't know the self. Therefore, we are afraid of the self. So we wear masks to avoid the self because we are afraid of the self, because the self is unique. So we are afraid as a result. Because we are afraid, we wear more masks. We wear masks to prevent growth, to prevent ourselves from getting to know the self because we are afraid of the unknown. We are afraid of change. So we make sure all of us it's a fear of the unknown, and the self is officially unknown. And as a result, we have destroyed creativity because creativity is the core of identity. It is the literal, concrete, tangent. It is the tangible, the corporeal of identity. It is the physical. The identity is the abstract. It is not physical. The creativity takes the abstract self and puts it into something tangible. For instance, I am a writer. My identity is the words I write. When I put them in a book and publish the book, I am now tangible. I exist in the corporeal realm. Artwork, all artwork is tangible. It's whenever you put yourself into something, you transfer your identity into a corporeal object. So creativity becomes banned because it is a representation of the identity. We seek power. We seek authority, not power. We seek authority. This is really important. Power allows us to obtain authority. Power allows us to obtain authority. So we seek out authority, but we can't get authority. And the consequence of obtaining authority is control. Control is the consequence. Power allows us to obtain it. This is what authority, power, control is. It's a consequence. But because we are afraid of the unknown, which is the identity, because we fear the unknown, we have banned creativity. We are all wearing a mask to conform. The truth has been denied and has been redefined as one truth, and we stunted our own growth, which is linked to creativity. And when we did that, we denied ourselves the ability to obtain our authority or power. So now we are all using fear to project and internalize our own control because we are hiding from ourselves. And we are just trying to survive. And the self becomes more and more the unknown, which is why we fear the shadow self. Thank you, Jan, who is also a philosopher. To break the cycle, you have to understand and you have to become aware. When I created Triadic Healing, I went on to this massive, let's heal people. I need to get out of the psychology box now and step into philosophy. This is philosophy. Because this is the message. This is the message I've been looking for. I'm going to introduce you to the philosopher's compass. Because when I give you the philosopher's compass, I can show you all of this. I needed the last, this is the fucking last piece. This is it. This is it. I was looking for the philosopher's compass. Oh my God, everything is clear. It's been literally just me writing my thesis for 3 days. So this is how this works. The philosopher's compass defines all of this, clarifies everything. And because of the philosopher's compass, I can now take Triadic Healing and say to you, this is what Triadic Healing does. It is the thing that breaks this catch-22 cycle. That's what it does. I take the fear out of the unknown using Triadic Healing because it's been defined through definition, understanding, and remembering. We can reverse this. There it is. Now, there are stages of fear. Ho, 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 ho. Wow, this is gorgeous shit. There are stages of fear. The stages of fear accompany the stages of growth. It's not the stages of growth. Oh, it's the stages of overcoming the fear. There. Oh my God. Click, 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 click. The stages of growth, as outlined by Dr. Graves, was so horribly incomplete. It was only like the beginning, which is okay. It just, they shelved it. They shelved it so no one ever sat down and actually dissected it further because it required a philosopher. Dr. Graves' work was phenomenal. It was extraordinary, but it was like chapter 1, and then nothing happened with it. He wrote chapter 1 introducing spiral dynamics, and then it went nowhere. Psychologists looked at it and went, well, that's nice, and they shelved it. There's abstracts in NIM, there's documentation, there's a few papers, and then it went nowhere since 1970. No one has touched this since because you need a philosopher to step in and finish it. It's not the stages of growth. As Dr. Graves said, it's the stages of overcoming fear because there is a fear factor in every single stage that must be overcome. But it never, we didn't continue it. Society, all of us, every single one of us failed. Yeah, how's that people-pleasing feeling right now? That's it, is we never learned how to handle fear. We never completed the work. Because we never completed the work, we stalled out and got stuck at stage 2, 3, and 4. But we need authority because we need our philosopher's compass. Oh my God, this is finally coming together. We require our identity, our authority, and our creativity in order to live a proper, healthy, balanced life. But we never mastered the stages of fear. Because we never mastered the stages of fear, we all stalled out with our growth. We never made it past stages 2, 3, and 4. Now, some of us are making it to stages 5 and 6, but stages 2, 3, and 4 are terrified of stages 5 and 6 because they never passed the lesson. They just identified nonconformists with being different. And that's scary because it's unknown. And stages 5, 6, and up show the masks to them. Suddenly they have to face the unknown, which is their self. The unknown is the self. Wow. Okay, then. I have work to do. Outline. This begins with the philosopher's compass, which is what I started studying back in 1995. But it was incomplete. That's why I became obsessed. That's all. It was incomplete. I'm like, where's the rest of it? Where was the answer? Oh, I finished I finished philosophy and I was drove me nuts. I'm like, where's the rest of it? So I studied all the philosophers and none of them ever returned to what Socrates introduced. It was incomplete. Socrates provides only two parts of the philosopher's compass, and he does not define the answers. And then everyone else went off on this massive tangent of all of these different distractions, and I'm still stuck on Socrates, Plato, going, but did anyone notice that these answers did not get answered? The philosopher's compass. Truth is the center. And if you don't know what truth is as it is defined, then you can't define the identity, the ego, the authority, and the creativity. Those are the three elements of truth. But I noticed that when you look at the University of Alexandria, this was fascinating to me, the subjects that were taught in Alexandria were science, biology, medical, physics, mathematics, philosophy, and art. Art. Astronomy, astrology, art. And I went, what the fuck? Why is art such a huge, what is it with art? I'll tell you what it is with art. Storytelling, communication, teaching, learning, that. Ooh. Self-expression, creativity. So when you look at the curriculum of the University of Alexandria, all of the sciences literally didn't hold a torch to art. Art is storytelling, communication, teaching, learning, self-expression, creativity. And the thing that they put in the middle was philosophy, the art, the science of thinking. But when we developed a significant fear of the self, we destroyed the identity, which stunted our growth. So we never could obtain our authority. There is no archetype. There is no archetype. It's authority we seek. That's the disconnect. The authority equals the archetype. But we couldn't obtain the archetype because we destroyed the self. We became afraid of the self. So we turned on the authority. We never could obtain it. It became unreachable. It became unreachable because we stopped studying art, because we became afraid of the unknown and afraid to grow, because we started to hide. When we started to hide, we internalized everything and we began to project. And the whole system fell apart. We stopped learning how to self-manage. We stopped learning how to be creative and using our resources. Art is our resources. Art is our resources. I said it in my business module the other day. Ooh, I have a module. Nice. I have to look up that word to see what it means. I said it the other day in my business module that our resources are a direct link to what we can create. That business is self-purpose and resources. Our business, our career, our calling, our job. We have three things inside of us. We have information. We have entertainment. That's all we've got. What did I say? What did I say? What did I say? It's actually in one of my videos. Let me go back to the video. It's so, so important. It is so, so important. And I have to have it right now, right here. What do you want to be when you grow up? Imagination. Three things right here. Okay. Time, information, and imagination. That's it. Time, information, and imagination. Imagination is the creativity. Imagination. We have three resources only at our disposal: time, information, and creativity, imagination. That's it. It's our imagination. And, oh, this makes so much sense now. This makes all the sense in the world. Our information is education. So when you're wanting to make money, when you're wanting to build a business, we sell our time, which is so stupid because it is the most priceless, most limited of our resources, and we're selling it for bottom dollar. Anyone who has studied anything on economics knows how ludicrous that sounds when it comes to the laws of supply and demand. Time should be outrageously overpriced. We should be charging like $5,000 an hour for time because it's such a limited resource. Stupid, stupid, stupid. So that leaves us with information, what you put in your head, and imagination, what you can create. The poorest of people, slaves, societal slaves, I'm talking to you, societal slaves sell their time. They sell their most valuable, priceless resource for bottom dollar, less than the minimum wage. You realize that's what you're doing, right? Because there's living wage, and then there's minimum wage, and your time is the most valuable thing you have. It's the highest of limited resources, and you're selling it for less than living wage. Societal slave. That's your truth. That is your truth. If you combine information with time, now you're getting into doctor, lawyer, but if you can combine information with imagination, now that's the sweet spot. Now you're in entrepreneur realm. Now you're in investment. Now you're in a whole nother realm. But scarcity mindset, we are hiding and we are afraid. We are hiding and we're surviving. Because we're in hiding and surviving, we're not even thinking about that. We're hiding from ourselves. Now, to fix it, triadic healing. Triadic healing literally walks everybody through this concept step by step. Once you understand it, it fixes it. Because it's just awareness and remembering. I created triadic healing first to get myself out of it. And then I said, okay, now what did I just do? And then I sat down and I started breaking down the philosophy of what it was I was doing. And it keeps coming back to the philosopher's compass. Once you understand the philosopher's compass, once you understand the big picture of here's the truth, here's the compass, here's how fear works. I understand. If you love shit like this, like, subscribe, follow, comment below. Let me know what part of the show resonated with you. Authenticity City is a mindset. It is my abstract concept. Take a look at the comment below that I have there, the video description. It fills it all in. And when you're done, here's your call to action. Here's your call to action. This is what I want you to do. I'm not telling you, do this now. I'm asking you. Take a look at the directory of Authenticity City. You can join the community. When you join the community, you step into the mindset. The rat race is a mindset. Step into the mindset. This is all about mindset. You can take my classes. I have my psychology class on Mondays, which is triadic healing. And I have my philosophy classes, which is open only to members. You have to become a member of the Authenticity City, a member of the Healing Garden only. Once you are enrolled in membership, you get access to me on Tuesday nights. And then there's only 4 elements of the self. There is healing. There is play. Play is absolutely tapped into the imagination part of the creativity of the compass. Healing is what you're going to need to get through this, because that's basically unlearning everything that you have learned. That's the healing part. It's unlearning what you've learned. And then there's play. There's the education, the learning center. That is your authority and your resources. And then there is the creative side. That is when you turn it into a business. So you can play and work your imagination and heal your imagination. You can learn with your ego and gain conscious awareness, and that will give you your authority that you need to grow. And then your creative side is taking your business and making it into something that's marketable. And in addition to all of that, I have the Ship of State, which is basically my World Peace Operation Imagination project, where I am looking to take triadic healing, the philosopher's compass, and basically push it out into society to start fixing this. But we require conscious awareness in order to pull this off. So thank you so much. Take a look at that. Figure out which parts you can use for you, and may the kindest of words always find you.